to another edition of Target Score Winnipeg. I am Joey Slattery. Alongside me is Taylor Allen. If you're not following us already, on Instagram at Target Score WPG, on YouTube at Target Score Podcast, because I understand a lot of you listen online, on podcast audio version. We love that, but there's also the YouTube version. Has a few more visual things that will help kind of with the understanding, standings, things like that. If you're watching, you know exactly what I'm talking about because it's just to the side here. So, but love having everybody aboard. It's good to be back. Couple of games have gone by. A little bit later, we're going to talk about the team as it stands. Deadline's coming up on July 25th where rosters have to be finalized. There's been one more big signing that has come through in Jordy Chaminga, but, you know, there's still 5 Americans. Is that how it's going to stay? Is one going to go? Is Terry Roberts the guy staying or going since he's the last guy back from Summer League? We're going to find that out in just a little bit, as well as we will look ahead to the games that are coming up against Edmonton and Calgary. A home one against Edmonton, away one against Calgary, and that Edmonton one is going to be interesting because Edmonton has been on fire as of late, and they've got some familiar faces on there, at least one familiar face that people are going to be looking forward to seeing his return. That is Mason Bourcier. But first things first, Taylor, since we should also thank Neil Noonan. As much as he took his rips at me, cheapers, I'm defenseless out there listening to Neil Noonan taking shot after shot. But I said, you know what, I'm going to be the bigger man about this and say that, you know, he did a relatively good job. I thought he was really good, and we thank him for stepping in and coming on the podcast. He is a great dude and a really good podcaster, and it was great to see you guys having your reunion because you had your show at RRC back in the day. So, yeah, it was good to hear and see Neil on the show, but I'm also glad to be back. So thanks for keeping the seat warm, Neil, but we'll see you later, buddy. But thanks for doing that. So with that said, now we can move into the real show. Last podcast that you guys had, this was ahead of Calgary and the game against Montreal, right? They're coming off a win in Saskatchewan. That was their first win in 5 games. Again, I was looking at that one. You beat Saskatchewan. They're the only team eliminated from the playoffs right now as of this recording, which is July 22nd. So, great. But then you lose to Calgary. To be fair, though, Taylor, that was a much better game, right? You lose, and then you go on the road to Montreal, a place you've never won before. Jalen Harris goes off for 29 points, and you finally beat Montreal in Montreal. And I recall last year that game being a tough one because Montreal was the Winnipeg in terms of they were hosting championship weekend. That had tended to be a gimme game for a lot of teams last year, and, you lost that one. So to come this year where Montreal's desperate, they're 4th in the East, like hanging on by a thread for a playoff berth, and you take care of business. But let's start with the Calgary game, Taylor. For me, the Calgary game, despite the loss, I liked a lot of what I saw. And that wasn't even the full look team, right? This was a team that was the second game for Will Richardson and Trayvon Scott, and they did fantastic. Scott couldn't find the basket for most of the game, but he brought down, I think it was like 6 or 7 offensive boards. He had 15 total, like just the epitome of what you want a player to do when they can't find, the twine. But it was still a loss, right? And Calgary's a team that you're going to have to beat. What was your takeaway from the Calgary game? Were you happy with what you saw in terms of the way the team was playing, considering there were a lot of moving parts and, guys that haven't really played together much? Or do you lean more into this loss that it wasn't a good thing?
Well, first of all, Joey, great to have you back. And, last week had a few different options of people that could ask to sub, but, I figured Neil would take the most shots at you. So, he met the criteria, brought him in, and he totally delivered. So big thanks to Neil for stepping in and throwing some shots.
And he's going to be mad because we're 3-4 minutes into this podcast and I've talked the whole time. That's the first time we've heard Taylor.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So there you go.
Stereotype. Thanks
He's
for bringing
speaking
that
the truth.
up.
He's speaking the truth. But anyways, on to basketball. Yes. The game against Calgary, kind of a weird one, Joey, because it was like the close score like the entire game. And the Seabears were hanging with them the whole time, but it just felt like they never went on that 8-0, 10-0, 12-0 run, just kind of get in front and kind of take control of the game. But other than that, overall, they played pretty well. I mean, Will Richardson,
dude,
when they signed that guy, I kind of just thought, ignorant me, of course, okay, they brought in this guy. He's going to fill in for Terry Roberts for 2 weeks, and he'll probably be shown the door, honestly. Or after that, just kind of be a backup point guard and whatever. But my goodness, in that Calgary game, he was the best Sea Bear on the court. Like he's a bit trigger happy at times. I will say that, but I mean, just like he is the most dynamic offensive player they've had at point guard maybe
Since
ever, right? Yeah. And you can have a guy like that who can shoot the rock like him. It can create his own shots as well, and you pair him up with a guy like Jalen Harris. I mean, it just makes Jalen Harris's job so much easier. And I think it's no coincidence in that Calgary game when Will was playing so well that Jalen was able to knock down 5 threes because no longer does he have to take like really tough contested threes always. Like there's times where he's like open from three and it's making his life a lot easier. So my biggest takeaway was just how impressed I was by Will Richardson. And then Trey Scott, like you said, like, yeah, his shot was not falling. I think in that first quarter, I think maybe in the first 5 minutes, he had 3 really good looks and all of them just rimmed out or just didn't fall for him. And obviously he was a bit frustrated, but he found the way to impact the game in a different way. And that's what you want to see from a guy. If the shot's not falling, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to have those nights. And he was an absolute monster on the boards with 16 rebounds. So, even though they kind of lost a heartbreaker, right? Like Jalen Harris hits that big 3 in target time to make it a 2-point game. But then, Calgary dribbles up the ball, hits a mid-range jumper, and sends everyone home. So even though it was a bit of a heartbreaker, just speaking to Mike Taylor after the game, like he was in pretty good spirits. I felt like he was actually, pretty happy with what he saw from the group. And I mean, again, that was only Will and Trey's, I think, third game with the Seabirds. Maybe it was their second game. So yeah, to give a team like Calgary, I mean, I know you're on your home court. I know, they need to do a better job against Calgary. They've lost now 5 in a row against the Surge, and that streak's going to have to end because there's a very good chance they're going to see them in Winnipeg at the end of August in the Final Four weekend. But I felt Mike and the guys they were encouraged by that performance, and I would agree. And I understand why, because I was also encouraged by it. But again, they need to start winning these games at home, protecting their home court. And I think heading into that, championship weekend, I think on their resume, it's going to help them a lot if they can say like, yeah, we beat, a couple of really good teams on our home court. You don't want to go into that Final Four weekend saying, yeah, this whole season, 14 games at home, whatever it is, like we didn't really get the job done against any of the big 3 in the West, being Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton.
Yeah, well, I'll say like, what are they like? I think they're 2-6 in the last 8. Like they've lost way more games. They won 2 games since that Vancouver game, right? Which was a huge win in Vancouver. Kind of flipped the script, or at least turned the page over from last year where they were awful on the road. But this year they've had more success on the road than last year. And honestly, like home court is the one that's, it's been such a staple, like a safe place for the Sea Bears. And teams would say all the time, like teams bring their best to Winnipeg, right? Like it's the big lights game for every team that rolls through town. And now we're seeing those teams, maybe it's just like the getting used to factor. I don't know, but like the West is better. I'm not going to actually, you know what? Here's my defense of the Sea Bears. The league is better. They're a good team on paper. They've had a lot of in and out. So you look at that Calgary game, Jalen Harris had 22 points. I think 3, maybe 5 in the second half. Simi Shadou got in foul trouble in that second half of that game. He had 0 points. He had all of his 19 points in the first half, right? Will Richardson almost has a triple-double. 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 23 points. And Trayvon Scott, to your point, 3 from 11 from the field. Not great, but he had 6 offensive boards and 10 defensive for 16 total. And he was 4 for 4 from the free throw line and had 10 points. So his shots weren't going, but you know what? 11 a little bit high. A lot of those in the first, probably trying to find his stroke. But then he hit shots when it mattered, right? But you're right in the sense that you have to learn to beat these teams. You beat Vancouver on the road, but you have to win at home, especially this year. Like you don't have a road playoff game. You have the luxury of home court advantage at the most important games, conference final and championship final. Now, the other thing where I'll step in for them here too is I'm interested to see what this team is going to look like when it's all said and done, because then they go to Montreal. Jalen Williams joins them back like fresh off the plane from Dallas, or at least summer league, playing with Dallas, playing on we'll say a bit of a high. I'm sure you go in, you play in the NBA or, with the NBA, get that under your belt, coming fresh off playing with Cooper Flag, you're going to have a little bit of, how would I put it? You're going to have a little bit of confidence. You're going to have a little bit of swagger coming into it, right? So you kind of had you kind of saw that a little bit where you're getting guys coming back and things are going well. I'm trying to pull up his stats here. But like Jalen Williams coming off 15 points, 6 boards and an assist. Like, so now he's back.
66% from the field he shot. Like he had a very
Yeah.
efficient game fresh off the plane. Like you said, like he met the team in Montreal. So
Yeah. 6
yeah,
for 9 from the field. So totally. Right. So now you're seeing that piece come in. Now, the Montreal game. Okay. Depends on how you look at it. 94-81 was the final score. Montreal's been struggling, and they should be desperate. But I like that win. You're on the road. You get your first one out of the way. Jalen Harris does what Jalen Harris had to do that game, score, just shy of 30 points, so 29. But it was a 13-point win, right? Like that's the other thing is like you separated and you got it done in target time. That was a great target time for the Sea Bears. So yeah, and now you've got Friday. So by Friday's game, Taylor, we will know who the team is. There's no more changes. The 25th is the deadline. You cannot make any more roster changes, right? So now you've got all the players that we've seen, right? Jordy Shemanga will be making his debut there. We haven't even got into him, but we'll get him into him and his acquisition in a little bit. But you got Will Richardson, as you said, probably a bit of a surprise. Really dynamic guy. And then you've got Trayvon Scott, who was here. And those guys were brought in to replace Jalen Williams and Terry Roberts, who were off to Summer League. In that process, Tevian Jones goes. But you still have 5 Americans. And Taylor, you're not sure that Terry Roberts might even be coming back, because that was the big question. How are you going to – you can have up to 6 imports, but you can only have 4 on the active roster. And that comes with different salary cap things too, right? So it's not an easy sell to be like, hey, man, we're gonna scratch you today. Like, can you just sit this game out? Like a guy who's coming in for a very valuable American spot. But last time I had talked to Mike Taylor, I asked him about it. Like this would have been during the Montreal game, and they were operating as they were coming back. But you were at the last practice. Let's let you take it over from here.
Yeah, so last week when I was talking to Mike Taylor about Terry Roberts coming back, similar to you, Joey, like he was, pretty hopeful and pretty confident that he was going to come back, and he seemed very excited about the idea of having this, really strong 1-2 punch, at point guard with Terry Roberts and Will Richardson. So fast forward to today, Jalen Williams, he's back in town. He played in Montreal for the Sea Bears, but it's like, okay, well, Terry Roberts still isn't here, and they play, on Friday, just in a few days. So I asked Mike for an update, like, hey, are you guys still expecting Terry? And I've asked him about Terry Roberts probably 5 times in the past 3 weeks, and every single time I asked him, I was always like, yeah, as far as he's still coming, and it's gonna be great, blah blah blah. But today was like the first time when there was like some doubt that like, yeah, maybe not, because he's back home in New York, and he said we're still talking to him and whatnot, but as of now, it's still kind of up in the air whether or not he's going to come or not. And it's like, okay, we're recording this on July 22nd. The roster deadline is just 3 days away, and you still don't know whether or not he's coming back. Not a super encouraging thing, obviously. So who knows what Terry's going to do? And I said to Mike, is one of the reasons why it's no longer a slam dunk for Terry to return is the fact that, you guys brought in Will Richardson, and he's been so dynamic. So, assuming Terry did come back, you'd have to think like his role isn't going to be quite the same. Like, is Terry Roberts still going to play 30 plus minutes a night when they have this guy like Will Richardson, who's been, I know Montreal, he wasn't as dominant, I guess you could say on offense, but I mean, Terry's role would look different with Will now. And Mike just said, you'd have to ask Terry that question. I don't know. So I don't know, Joey. I mean, he could show up at the last minute. I even asked Jalen Williams about it today as well. I said, hey, like, are you guys reaching out to Terry, trying to tell him like, hey, man, like we need you, like, come on down and stuff? And he said, hasn't really talked much to Terry. He said he did see him in Vegas at Summer League, and they talked a little bit, but he said, at least he personally isn't, blowing up Terry's phone. He's kind of, respecting the process and whatever, but said like we would love to have him back. So yeah, that's a bit of a blow, but maybe it's not, Joey, because if you do if Terry does come back, that would give them too many Americans, right? Yeah. That would be, I mean, sometimes it's nice to have all that depth, obviously, but then you're making a decision like, okay, who's the odd guy out? Who's going to be sitting out? So they might not have to worry about that, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if you had a guy like Terry or Will, whoever you decide to start coming off the bench, I mean, I spent probably 30 minutes talking to Neil last week about how bad I think this bench has been all year. That would be quite the luxury. It would probably fix that problem. But I don't know. At this point, if I'm a betting man, I'd probably bet on Terry not coming, but that doesn't mean he's for sure not coming. But we'll see.
Well, and that was a big signing, with Maurice Kalou, another guy we've not mentioned on this episode. A big thing with him coming was he's willing to come off the bench. And this guy's a starter in the CEBL. He's one of the top Canadians, right? Like, this is a guy that's got a ton of experience, not only in the CEBL.
He didn't play in Montreal.
Yeah, but the Montreal thing too, I know with him, like, he's coming off injuries, right? Like, that was kind of the iffy part with it. He hadn't played since March before that game against Calgary. And even in that game against Calgary, like, his minutes were limited. Like, I thought we would see more of him, especially when like when Simi came in, I thought, like, okay, like, this is the time. But I think that's more of an easing him into it. They're more, again, the Sea Bears are running a different race than everybody else, right? They're not jockeying for position. They're not fighting for a playoff spot. Like, their outcome for the playoffs or getting into the playoffs is predetermined. They're in the conference final. They have the luxury, and you can see the mindset when you just hear Mike Taylor talk. It's less about, like, we want to earn our way in, to now we just got to have our best team playing at their best come August, right? And come championship weekend. And that's fair. That's not a knock. That is something that they should be doing. Like, that is the luxury of hosting championship weekend, 100%. Now, with the Terry Roberts thing, and I did feel this, like, the one thing you have to look at is they had an open American spot when they were gone. So they could have brought in another rental even, right? To just bolster up for the games that those guys were gone. They didn't do it. And I think part of that was because they wanted both of them to feel welcome back, right? Like, we're not replacing you, the player. We're replacing the open spot that you left to go to Summer League. And I think there's that mutual respect. But as you say, like, I was in the same boat. Like, Will Richardson was like, I didn't know much about him, right? Like, this is a guy that kind of came in and was like, boom, triple-double, 8 assists. And I don't think that it's like the goal was always playing so good, we're going to replace Terry Roberts with Will Richardson. I don't think that was it. I think Mike Taylor's looking at it as a guy who's looking at, the evolution of basketball and how we're kind of going more to, like, lineups now, right? It's less about starters and reserves. And you're even seeing it a little more in the NBA now, where it's like you're putting out looks, right? You always hear Mike Taylor talk about the looks. We want to get our looks. We want to see what's out there and, preparing for these situations. But to the 5 American thing, you're allowed 6, but only 4 on the active roster, and that's important. So looking at the roster makeup now, the obvious one, right, would be you have 2 point guards. So, like, it seems like the easy one. They're not an easy decision because they're both really good, but I can see where Terry Roberts is coming from if that's what he's thinking. Well, yeah, I was playing a lot. It was my show. Like, I had, Joffrey James coming in, who's, fresh off his U Sports career, like, still a U Sports player. So it's like you have guys that were, like, never going to take your starting role. And now you're coming into, like, oh man, I've seen this guy tear up the CEBL in a very short time. I'm just coming back from Summer League. Am I going to be rusty? How long's my leash? That might all be playing. If it did work, like, I think it would have been an unreal to see the look of those 2 guys handling the ball. Can you imagine having that small lineup? You know what I mean? We have 2 guys that can handle the ball, set themselves up, set each other up, because both of them can hit shots. Like, that's the other thing. Like, you can't just sit back and read where the pass is going, because they'll take the shot. But I would understand where he's coming from, but I do think if he comes here, there's a much better team. And having that off the bench, like, you can legit have a full game where you never take a step back from point guard, right? And you can win that championship, which I think goes further than, your minutes getting docked in the last few games. Like, I don't know how many scouts and coaches are looking at that, like, well, is playing time got docked back, and another point guard came in whose time will also get docked back after the first few games, because they'd be splitting it more evenly, I'd imagine, unless there's a really hot hand. But they won a championship. Like, I think, to me, like, you can't lose sight of the opportunity of, yeah, we had 2 really good point guards that I was in a competition with every single day, right, for those minutes. But I was a good teammate, and we won a championship because of it, because we pushed each other, right? And that goes for both of them. I'm not saying just Terry or Will. Like, that's the kind of stuff I think I'd be looking for as a coach or a scout if I'm going to offer them, whether it be Europe or the NBA, whatever. But a lot of eyes are going to be out there on Friday looking to see if number 3 is there. And we'll know, because that is the deadline. So if he's not there, it'll be safe to say that he's not coming back, at least if he's not on the suspended list or whatever from the roster sheet. But it's going to be interesting. That losing Terry Roberts, he became a fan favorite pretty quick. He's the guy, I think we could both agree, Taylor, was the most what's the word I'm looking for? Productive, consistent in terms of like his play. Like, he was always high up there in assists. He was always getting the playing time. He played through while he was hurt. That's another thing. I know he was playing hurt earlier in the season. Is he at home now thinking, well, I'm just taking extra time before I have to get back for the next game? That could be it. I don't know. I've not talked to Terry or anybody that is in the know with Terry, right? We just hope that for whatever reason, everything's good, right? Is the big thing. But it would be great to see him back here. Do you have any last thoughts on Terry Roberts or?
Well, kind of just in general. I mean, this league, or at least the Sea Bears, are becoming a team that's very hard for the casual fan to follow. I'll even talk to people who have season tickets, who go to every game or basically every game, and they'll say to me, "So I heard the Sea Bears they signed another guy this week." Like no one can keep track of who's coming in, who's coming out. And again, we've said this a million times, it is kind of just a product of being a minor league team and being a summer league and whatever. But yeah, like with Terry Robertson, I mean, this guy left to go play summer league. He ended up playing one summer league game. When Neil and I, talked last week, he had 0 games played at that point. They went down, ended up getting to play one game at least, and Jalen Williams ended up playing 3 games with the Mavericks, so a little better. But I mean, Jalen Williams, he averaged 3 points per game in his 3 games that he played with the Mavericks. Like, is that really how much did that experience really help his career? Perhaps maybe making the connections with people and in the NBA circle and whatnot. I don't know. And probably, yeah, there's probably is more eyes on the NBA Summer League because it is just a 2-week thing, and there are so many young guys fresh out of college trying to impress not even just the NBA, just like people overseas and whatever, just trying to get some tape on them as to how they could potentially look in the pros. So I'm not totally knocking these guys for making the jump, but I mean, a guy like Terry, for example, like I just don't really get. I don't know, it's just like a weird summer. Like you start the Sea Bears, you're really productive, fan favorite. I think one of the strongest pro seasons that he's had anywhere. If you look at the numbers, then you leave the summer league, only play one game, and then you don't come back to Winnipeg and finish this thing out. Like Jalen Williams today was saying, like he came back because he wanted to finish this thing out. He wanted to see where this was going to end, and he gave the team his word, and that's important to him and stuff. And I'm not saying Terry went back on his word or anything, but just like I don't know, man. It's just a weird story. It's going to be something that I guess we're going to have to follow in the coming years. Basically, is just like these American guys, like, hey, are you going to go to the summer league? And if you go, like, are you for sure going to come back and whatnot? Just adds kind of like an awkward, complicated wrinkle to building rosters. And I mean, you look at the Sea Bears team, all the guys that they signed in the offseason, I mean, it feels like basically all of them are gone. Like this is a completely different team, right? Like Tevian Jones gone, Mason Bourcier gone, Terry Roberts potentially gone, and all these new guys that they've brought in. It's just like, I don't know, like,
Solomon
do we
Young.
even? Yeah, Solomon Young. It's like, do we even put much stock into the team that tips off in game 1 anymore? Like, do
It's
we
a
even
totally different
bother?
team. It felt like the Calgary game felt like home opener 3.0. Like we were being
which is insane. It's
reintroduced to another team with a couple of notable names that we already knew, right? And like kind of like what the home opener of year 2 felt like. I feel like we've had like 3 of those this year, right? Where some familiar faces, but there's a new face every whatever month or 3 weeks, whatever it is. But the difference is now is this is the final team, right? So after Friday, like come Friday, whatever team you see on the floor that day or that game, that will be your team from now until the end of the season. And, I think if you win a championship, all is forgotten, right? Again, that is the luxury. Yes, this is how the CEBL works, but at the end of the day, you're the team that knows you can win the championship more than anybody else. You have the best odds because you're already placed in the conference final. You have to win 2 games. That's it. The record means literally nothing, which is hard to say. And that's been probably one of the weirder parts to covering this season, Taylor, for you and I, is like, you can't put a lot of stock into wins and losses, right? Like in terms of it has no impact on your positioning. Like you can take the loss, like, yeah, okay, not great for morale, not great for culture, but it literally doesn't matter. They could have forfeited all of their games and they'd still be in the semifinals, the conference finals, to at the end of the year. So it has been different. You're looking for the storylines and they are important, but there's that caveat of they lost, but it doesn't matter, right? So now it'll be interesting to see. Like now, there's no more excuses. There's no more loopholes, or there's no more like emergency shoots. Like this is the team you're stuck with, right? So can they make a gel by then? We'll see. I think with Terry Roberts, they're much better, but without him, they still have a really good team. And I think Will Richardson has proved he's more than capable to pick up where Terry left off. But maybe with Terry maybe it was it a confidence thing going through the G League? Like or not the G League, sorry, the Summer League. I don't know, right? Like I don't want to speculate on it too much. I have nothing on this, but like obviously you're going to ask questions of like, well, why? Everything seemed great until it wasn't, right? And so and maybe that's it. Maybe you come back just to kind of silence that. Like, do you want that floating around too, right? I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see, like, because I know Terry Roberts in terms of like his reputation with Long Island, like the Nets organization loves him. He's had nothing but glowing reviews here. He seems like a good teammate. He plays hard. He plays through injury. I mean, he's gone through life stuff that, he's, we're just lucky to have him here essentially and to be able to watch him play basketball. So it'll be interesting to see if he's there on Friday. You know who will be there on Friday? Mason Bourcier. Mason Bourcier, he's already played Winnipeg in Edmonton, but this will be his official return since he left Winnipeg and then signed with Edmonton. And the Stingers are on a heater. They're actually, ironically enough, I say that as they're coming off a loss. They lost to Vancouver last 111-99. It was a close game though. Like, it kind of sounds like, oh, well, they lost by 12, but it was a really, really good game. Vancouver's so strong, but Edmonton, nothing to scoff at right now. Mason's been a starter. A dude that, kind of called his own shot on that. And looking at his stats from this year, he only played 3 games, but like the one thing, Taylor, is like he had 11 minutes average through 3 games with Winnipeg. He's averaging 20.8. He started in 11 of the 12 games he's played with Edmonton. He started in none for Winnipeg. His stats are modest. I mean, his points dipped from 3.3 to 2.9. His field goal percentage is up almost 1%. Whereas the rebounds, that's his biggest one. He's a rebound and a half higher than he was with the Sea Bears earlier this year. Assists up half an assist, but like stats wise, he's like not glowing, much better than he was in Winnipeg, but he's definitely having an impact, particularly on defense, where that was his reputation here. Hard worker, go to work, and that's why people loved him and were so shocked to see him leave. But what do you expect from Mason? Like, part of me's thinking here, I think he's a dude that probably wouldn't say it, but I think inside, he's probably seething a bit, right? I don't know if he was ready for that release. Like, I think it was like, I want to get released, and they're like, okay, go. And then he found his spot with Edmonton, and now he's out to prove something. And this is also a big game for Calgary. For Edmonton, rather, because they're in a race with Calgary right now for that, wouldn't say last spot, but the top 3 teams will make it to the playoffs. 2 and 3 will play in a play-in game, while the number 1 team will get a bye in the West, right? So Edmonton currently a game and a half back of Calgary. So a win here against Winnipeg goes a long way because that brings them back to within half a game. And, if you get a little help from Winnipeg, then, whatever. Plus, they'll have other games to be played. But this is a big opportunity for Mason Bourcier. And like, I don't think it's going to be an unwelcoming reception. I think fans are going to be pretty happy to see him I think he'll come out to a few cheers, at least to start. What do you think?
Well, I mean, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, Mason Bourcier didn't exactly light the league on fire in Winnipeg, but I will say he's basically the second coming of Steve Nash compared to Joffrey James. I mean, that guy who was basically once Mason left, Joffrey James is kind of like, okay, now you're going to be our Canadian backup guard. And Joffrey has been really flat, if we're being honest. And yes, he's just coming out of U Sports and whatever, and maybe that was too much of a role to kind of put that guy in. But
he was chosen as the backup before Mason left. Like, so to your point,
sure.
Like,
yeah,
you're out of U Sports, but that was an active decision that James was going to be the backup point guard.
Yeah, which I don't understand because I haven't really seen anything from Joffrey this year that that makes me understand why they would go with him instead of Mason. But I mean, I digress. But I mean, good for Mason. He's gone to Edmonton. He's landed on his feet. He has a much bigger role, which is obviously what he wanted. I mean, when you go to being the 3rd string point guard, yeah, I don't blame you for wanting out and wanting to start fresh. So good for him. I mean, he was a popular player in Winnipeg when he did get or when he asked for his release. Big difference. A lot of Seabears fans were online, really disappointed with how he was used and stuff because you watch him play and he's a guy that has a high IQ. He's a guy who hustles on defense. He's a guy who can knock down open threes. Like that's kind of like the prototypical guy that you want to be a backup point guard in any league. Never mind just the CEBL. So yeah, I'm sure people will, give him a warm welcome and whatnot. But Joey, he's not the only Sea Bear who's gone on to Edmonton and taken a bigger role and impressed with such role. Because Scotty
Yeah.
Lindsay, man, when he was with Winnipeg last year, there was obviously some games where he like shot the lights out. I was like, okay, like yeah, this guy's a really good player. But there were also many games with Scotty Lindsay that I watched last summer where it was like it just felt like he disappeared, right? Like, just felt like the minutes would go by and there wasn't he wasn't really having much, if any, impact on the game. So when he didn't come back or they didn't bring him back this year, it's kind of like, okay, like yeah, I respect that move, or I kind of agree with that move. You could probably bring in a different import and get some more out of them than Scotty. But I'm eating my words now because Scotty has been arguably one of the best imports in the league this year. I mean, just the other
Yeah.
week, I think he dropped 29 points, and he had a game against Niagara earlier this year where he dropped 32 points, and it's just like he's going off. And I think this year he's averaging 17 points per game. He's shooting the ball really well. Like he has been like an awesome like 3-and-D type of player for Edmonton. And this is a team that won. What was it? They won 6 or 7 games right
Like
before
in a row,
their latest
they lost
one.
to Vancouver. It wasn't even like a, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't even like a bust of a game. You're playing the best team in the league essentially, right? And on a 7 game run. So even the way they lost it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, and you don't see teams go on 7 game heaters, very often in this league. So you look at Edmonton's record; they're at 11-7, which is obviously a strong record, but doesn't exactly scream like they're a giant in this league. But no matter where they finish in the West, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. And this is a team that Winnipeg has been bounced out of the playoffs by. I mean, I know it's all different players or whatever, but Edmonton, seemingly has Winnipeg's number in the playoffs, right? They've knocked them out in the last 2 play-in games. So, yeah, the Stingers, it's very easy to get caught up in the Vancouver Bandits, because they've been steamrolling teams, right? And Calgary, just especially how they've dominated Winnipeg. But Edmonton, like, do not forget about these guys. So I'm actually really excited for Friday's game.
Same here. And like, even like to what you brought up with Mason, like, because even looking at his stats from, just like even last year, which I think are a better comparison, right? Like played 21 games last year total, including playoff game with Winnipeg. He started in only 3 of them, right? But his minutes were about the same now. Like he was 20.6, now he's 20.8. Those points has dropped. So his production has gone down since he was with Winnipeg, but I think the role demands a lot different from him in Edmonton as well. And I think when I say he's gonna have a good game, I don't think he's gonna go off for 30, but like I can see him going off for like a solid like 10, 6, and 6. Like he's gonna be motivated for this game. Like it's already fun enough to be in Winnipeg. He's got roots here. He's had a lot of big moments here. Like I think if there's one game he had circled on the calendar, it was that first one in Edmonton, but I think this one was circled double, right? Like to come back to Winnipeg and, for his own chance to make a statement. But I will say that he's a team guy. I don't think he's going to go out of his way. Or maybe he will. Like that's one thing I've never really seen him in this situation.
What's a big Mason Bourcier moment that he had in Winnipeg? What am I forgetting? I mean, come on. they're not going to play a 15-minute montage video for Mason Bourcier. I mean, lovely guy. He's a joy to cover. It's awesome seeing him around at practice and stuff every day. But
no, the most memorable moment is when he proposed to his wife. Like that's what I mean, right? He had those moments where it's like,
okay, that's fair. That was a pretty big moment.
Like there's things that he had moments in Winnipeg where I think Winnipeg was important to him. I don't think that he wanted to leave, even though he asked for the release. Like I think in his world, like I'm going to come back to Winnipeg. I'm going to keep it here. Like it kind of feels like home. People have his jersey here. Like he's big enough, Taylor, that like there's Bourcier jerseys in the stands, right? Like, so there's definitely going to be a motivation factor here because you're saying there's no memories, right? And there's no big moments. Sorry, no, hold on, stay with me. But you're saying like that there are no big moments. But I would be willing to bet that Mason Bourcier is saying that because he didn't get the opportunity to have any, right? Especially towards the end in that last little stretch, he wasn't getting the playing time. And that's where the motivation factor comes in. This is his chance to prove to Mike Taylor, to whatever, Mike Taylor, the whole organization and fans, to be like, you missed out. Like, you shouldn't have let me ask for my release and give it to me. Whether that happens is another thing, but I'm interested to see. That's the storyline for me personally that I'm looking forward to, just to see, is he going to be an X factor in this game more so than we've seen? Because defensively, like, he gave Jalen Harris a hard time. Jalen Harris was like physically frustrated. Like, you can see it when they were playing in Edmonton, right? This guy is fearless. He's not going to worry about who he's guarding or where they're from. And he's got a little bit added here. Further to that, Jordan Baker's got this team like molded, right? Like, yeah, picked up Lindsay, Keon Ambrose Hilton's been a monster for Edmonton, but these are guys that are kind of buying into that dog mentality, similar to what we saw with Vancouver last year, where it's, they're building up and trending the right way at the right time if they can keep it up. So it's a good test for Winnipeg in that one. But obviously, I'm just excited to see, is there a Bourcier moment on the other side, right? Are we going to be talking about the Bourcier moment where he did come on and have like the best, playing or best game of his career or not? And it might just be nothing. It might be a 2 points, 3 assists, 4 rebound day for him. But I'm interested to see what it is, because that'll be the one, I think, where there's a little bit more emotion to the game than normal when you have a guy like him coming back, where people were sad to see him go. And to your point, like, there are players that have bigger impacts that people probably don't remember their names.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Well, what about the new Canadian that just joined? The new Canadian of the week, Joey. Mo Kalou last week, and this week Jordy. And I'm going to let you pronounce his last name.
I think it's Shamanga. Like, I gotta,
Okay.
I haven't pronounced it in a year. But yeah, he's another good player. Like, the bench, Taylor, like, for as bad as they've been, like, the adjustments have been made in the last 2 weeks, right? Like, if Maurice Kalou is healthy and he can play those minutes, it's going to take a healthy 5 minutes off, Simi Chateau, which isn't a bad thing going down the stretch. Like, I want him to play 30, 31, 32 minutes in the playoffs, right? So if you can rest him, especially when you have a sizable lead, things like that, like making sure that he's still in his rhythm and routine. But then you add Shaminga, like, those are some big looks, dude. Like,
And Jalen Williams coming off the bench as well, assuming he keeps coming
and
off the bench.
Jalen's like a natural 4, right? Like, that's the other thing. Now you have everybody in their natural positions. Kyler Filowich hasn't played in days. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's a rookie. Like, and he's got starting experience. So that that in a pinch, like, he could go in too for a few minutes at the very least, right?
I think his role is
Diminished
basically
completely
done for the year.
Which
is too bad, but he's a rookie, fresh out of school, and
these are going to happen.
This summer is a learning experience. This is summer camp for Kyler Filowich, and that is fine. He's going to be a good player, but yeah, I think bringing in Jordy, it kind of solidifies that it's going to be very tough for Kyler to get on the floor, heading down the stretch.
And to play devil's advocate on that, like, what a great opportunity for Kyler Filowich too, right? Like, you've got the start, what it's like to play there, so the feeling, and now you're watching guys having the feeling of when I played, like, those little things that are going to make me better without the stress of having to go out and do it on a nightly basis, not really knowing the difference, right? He's behind some really good dudes. So for people that are like disappointed or worried about it, like, I wouldn't be. He's a true rookie. And the other thing is, like, not to go off on another tangent, but like, I think it proves just how special Simon Hildebrandt was to the Sea Bears, right? Like, it was really that good. Like, people play in the NCAA tournament, come to this league, and don't do what Simon Hildebrandt was able to do after his first year of university in Canada. So, like, these are things that it's like, I think there's this shaded, because you played in, at Wofford and won these, accolades, and your team went to March Madness, that, like, you're just going to come out here and dominate, right? And there were people that thought that off the top. I think we might have talked about that in one of the first episodes. And I was kind of thinking, like, I don't know, man. Like, it's his first games. Let's, like, let him kind of feel it out. But it's a great situation to have Jordy Shamanga on there, because, like, they don't have the 3-point shooting. Their field goal percentage is awful, right? Last in the league in both. Now, it's almost like, okay, if we're not going to get our 3-point shooter, like, if we don't have our Scotty Lindsay, the way Scotty Lindsay's playing in Edmonton right now, we're going to make sure that we have the rim protection, right? And try to get away from the transition game. Like, you have guards that are fast enough now that you can kind of set it up where if your shot selection's good, the transition won't be as much of an issue defensively for you. But having that rim protection and being able to throw it into the post and wear teams down, I think there's like, what? Screw it. We're going with Giants. like 6'10" and up. That's it, right? So I'm interested. It's a bold move, but there's definitely an identity now. There are your playmaking guards and your strong play, like at the blocks, like in the post, even the high post, to be fair. I mean, like both of these, or I should say all of these guys, are capable of shooting, right? We've seen Simi shoot up some threes. Kalu can shoot the three. So like there's still threats up high and beyond the arc, but it just, like, they're very much making a move now where it's like, no, like there's no breaks. Like when Simi Shatu gets off, like you're still dealing with big bodies, plural. It's not going to be easy to find those baskets down the lane. So if you want to beat us with, the mid-range pull-ups and three-pointers, go for it. But don't expect any easy lanes to the basket. But now they have to live up to it.
With Jordy today, I met him, and then I'm writing an article about him and the Sea Bears right now for in the Winnipeg Free Press. You can
I
find
was just
it
going to
on-
say, make
on
sure that you
Twitter.
plug it.
But anyways, after I spoke to him, we didn't have a photographer at practice today, so I'm like, hey man, can I quickly take a picture of you on the court? So as we're walking through the tunnel to get to the court, he pretended that he was like a wrestler, like making his entrance to the ring, and he was singing John Cena's theme song. So I'm like, okay, right, that's all I need to know. This guy's going to be a beauty. But but on a more serious note, I mean, he just came from Taiwan. That's why he wasn't in the CEBL to start the year. He was playing in Taiwan, and he said he got home and he was kind of ready to kind of just kick his feet up for the rest of the summer, basically. But then Mike Taylor reached out and kind of sold him on this opportunity. He's like, okay, why not? So he's only home for a hot minute, basically. Then he made the trip out here, and he seems pretty excited to be here. And now, Joey, it's basically a 2023 Calgary Surge reunion in Winnipeg. I mean, the Spider-Man meme with the two Spider-Mans, pointing at each other. Well, it feels like the 2025 Sea Bears and the 2023 Calgary Surge are like that meme right now. Because I mean, Simi Shatu, Trey Scott, Jordy. I'm blanking on one. There's one more guy that was on that team. So
Simi, well, Maurice Kalu played there.
Yeah, there you go. Thank
Yeah.
you. That was it. Yeah, four guys from that 2023 Calgary Surge team. So, I mean, that's kind of an underrated point about these moves that they're making, Joey, is that it's not like they're bringing these guys from totally somewhere random and they've never played with any of these guys on the team. That's like, no, like Jordy already fits in. Mo Kalu already fits in. Like they know these guys. They've played with so many of these guys on this team. So even though they're coming here late, it's probably not going to be like this huge daunting task for them to fit in so quickly. But I mean with Jordy, you're right, like he's not going to help them with their 3-point shooting, but this is a guy who averaged 17 rebounds a game in Taiwan. I mean, he wasn't playing in the top league in Taiwan, but still
dominated.
Like, you're grabbing 17 rebounds even against a middle school. That's still impressive. So
yeah.
have a guy off the bench, he'll clean up the mess around the rim and whatnot. And there's been a lot of messes around the rim because this team can't shoot, but I digress. So I think that's a move that's going to really really help their bench, and hopefully they could for their case that they can ease Mo Kalu back into things. Like you said, he has been working back from some injuries and stuff. So that makes more sense why he didn't play the last game. But yeah, having two big Canadian guys and a big guy in Jalen Williams off the bench, I mean that puts this bench in a pretty decent spot because again they've been outscored basically every game their bench. So if you even just get some good minutes out of them, that's huge. But I mean, to be fair though, Nate Balamu, he's been pretty solid. Their last game in Montreal, he was plus 24. I mean, he only played however many minutes, and I think he scored 5 points. But when he was on the court, he was plus 24. So you can't ask for much more from a Canadian guy coming off the bench than that. So props to Nate Balamu. We don't really give that guy enough love probably on the show.
Well, Balamu, like, to be fair, is like probably the best story of the year for the Sea Bears. Like he's kind of the Darren Watts of last year. Darren Watts being the Manitoba Bison player who, played some minutes last year for the Sea Bears as an undrafted guy. And that's, Nate Balamu. He's a Lakehead guy, knows Ryan Thompson, the assistant coach, really well. He's the head coach out at Lakehead. I don't think they had any expectation this guy was going to be who he is. Like he just kind of, made the most of his opportunities and now has become like a consistent role player, right? Like he's getting consistent minutes now and has become a dependable guy for the Sea Bears, which is great to see. So yeah, great shout out on Balamu because he certainly deserves it. But won't spend too much time here just looking ahead to Calgary. The big thing I'm looking at with the Calgary game is how they're going to
Edmonton.
adjust. No, sorry, moving past Edmonton to the Calgary
Oh,
game.
okay. My
We won't
bad.
have it. We
My
won't
bad.
have another
My bad.
podcast until that. But my big thing in that game is you're on the road. It's tough, a tough place to win in Calgary. I don't think they've won there either. I'll be there with CJOB calling the game. So if you're not watching on CEBL Plus, it'll be on 680 CJOB. Looking forward to it because I've always talked about this venue. How I'm excited to see what it looks like in person and what makes it such a tough place to play in. But the other thing is they didn't have Jameer Nelson Jr. I assume he's going to be back for this from Summer League. I'm not 100% positive on that. But the guys that they brought in, Evan Gilliard Jr. was a menace for the Sea Bears. He had 15 points, 4 assists, couple of boards. Then they had Jamorko Pickett coming off the bench for 16. You talk about bench play. Well, there's a guy who came off the bench and made the most of his 18 minutes. 16 points, 4 boards, and an assist to go along with a steal. So, and a block. So, yeah, this guy, or no, sorry, not the block, misreading that. But they've seen some guys now, on top of Ruggsy Miller-Moore's having a great season for Calgary, almost like a twilight. Like, it just seems like he got better this year when he should be on the downward, if anything, but playing unreal, Ruggsy Miller-Moore. Greg Brown has been probably the most entertaining guy in this league to watch. I mean, the guy is a dunk factory. Kind of reminds me of Tajay Moore last year in Vancouver with just the highlights after highlights. So fun to watch him play. But it'll be interesting to see now that you played 3 games. This Calgary team, much like the Winnipeg team, was much different from the first 2 times they met early in the season. And this is a team you're likely going to have to get through. Both of these teams. One of these teams this weekend, you're going to play on championship weekend. I think Vancouver's got enough in them, and that win against Edmonton was huge. I think with a 2.5 game lead this late in the season, I think they're going to clinch that top spot in the West. So you are likely, like if well, I shouldn't say that, because if Vancouver wins the quarterfinal, which they likely would be Vancouver, but you have to be ready for the upset too. Like Vancouver's going to lock in that spot, but we've seen in the last 2 years, right? The team wins that quarterfinal or the play-in game and then wins the quarterfinal to move on, right? I think Scarborough did it the year they won. Like they were the play-in team on the
It wouldn't
road.
surprise me if any of those 3 teams, you can make a very strong argument. Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. Whoever ends up being in Winnipeg in that, West final, I will not really be surprised. Even
And I'll say
no matter who's hosting the quarterfinal or semifinal, I should say, yeah, I'm not going to be surprised because all 3 of those teams have shown, that they can be a champion this year.
I'll say this: the gift to the Sea Bears this year is they might not have to play either of those teams because both of those teams have beaten them out in the play-in game. They lost to Edmonton at home in 23, and then they lost to Calgary on the road in 24. This year, you're past the play-in game. You've never played in a quarterfinal. Now you're going to go right to the conference final, and you might have to play Vancouver, where the pressure would be on them. What scares me, if I'm Winnipeg, is, and that's why I think these games are important, because if one of these teams gets hot in that play-in game, Vancouver might get caught off guard, where if they upset Vancouver, now they're playing with house money, right? So then they're coming into Winnipeg as not like the heavy favorites. It's just kind of like, we shouldn't have been here. We had to win 2 hard games to get here. And then it might take that pressure off, where Vancouver, at least, they're coming in here. If they do win that quarterfinal game where it's like, this is where we're supposed to be, like the pressure is win, or it's not enough because they lost in the finals last year. They're out for redemption. But it's, I still think if I had to predict right here, they're playing Vancouver in the conference final, but I wouldn't count out either of these 2 teams. And I think it's a very important test. If you can't beat these teams, I know you beat Vancouver on the road, but, I don't know if it's, we can't beat these, but we can beat Vancouver. I think you have to beat at least one of these. You have to go at least 1-1 in these next 2 games, preferably 2-0, to give yourself some relief, the fans some relief, but also some confidence that, okay, we beat the other ones. The only other team left to beat now is Vancouver, and we've done that once. We beat everybody. Like, at a crunch time when all the good players were there. So that's my thing, is I think you actually need to have the mindset that we have to win one, and their mindset will probably be we have to win both, right? So if you get that game against Edmonton, that would be a huge win on home court, where Edmonton historically, aside from that, like the last 2 games, has been the only successful team for a long time on this home floor. So it's not a team that's, going to come in shell-shocked. They have some motivation there on numerous accounts, as we talked about. So if you can take care of business on home court, then go to Calgary and finally get over that hump, unlike last week, then all of a sudden, you're going to be talked about as a threat and not the team that's just got to win 2 games. Now it'll be like, oh no, we actually have to go in there and beat Winnipeg. So good opportunity to make that statement, but we'll see. That game is on Friday. Friday night, 7:30 start, I believe. And then 3:00 local being Manitoba time, in Calgary, 2:00 start Mountain. So big test ahead. And I think it's going to be a fun end of the season regardless. We know who the team's going to be. Do they have it in them? Is this the team that is it? It will be it in terms of roster moves, but is this the team that Mike Taylor dreamed of and the fans were hoping for to bring that championship home on home turf? We're going to have to wait and see. Any final thoughts, Taylor?
I got 3 for you. Earlier on the show, I said the last 2 seasons of the Sea Bears were knocked out by Edmonton. So clearly, I'm misremembering that. Didn't they lose the game? I think they lost the game to Edmonton late last year, like their last home game last year.
It's because in the first year, what happened was in the first year, they lost to Edmonton in the last game of the year. And had they won that game, they would have had a bye to the quarterfinal. Yes. But because they lost that game, they still retained home advantage for the play-in game. And 6 days after that loss, Edmonton beat them again. And then they moved on to Calgary. Last year, it was Calgary. That was the I don't remember who they played last in the season, but Calgary was the host play-in.
Okay. I got the province right. That's whatever. There you go. So my bad on that, folks. But anyways, I have been to the WinSport Event Center in Calgary, but I was there for the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, watching Jennifer Jones, Rachel Homan. So I can't really speak as to why that building has been so good for the Surge. So it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts next week. And in closing, Joey, or at least my last thought is, going into that Final Four weekend, like I was saying earlier, it'd be really nice for these guys, for their sake, to knock off one of these top 3 teams in the West, just down the stretch and whatever. But maybe there's also part of me that thinks, you know what, Joey, maybe it's not a bad thing if they finish this year with very minimal success against the big 3 in the West, because when it heads into that championship weekend, whoever it may be, good chance to be Vancouver, but even if it's Calgary or Edmonton, they sneak through, maybe it'll take Winnipeg a little, for granted a little bit. Maybe they'll kind of overlook them a little bit. Like, these Sea Bears, they've done nothing against, the West this year. They're just here because they're hosting. No problem. Piece of cake. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. That may be the fact that if the Sea Bears, you don't want to aim to do this, obviously, but I'm just saying this might end up being, in a crazy way, a benefit to having, not a great run against these teams this year. So we'll see. But also, too, having said that, do you really think the Sea Bears are revealing all of their cards in these games when they are playing these guys? I did talk to Mike Taylor about this, I think 3 weeks ago or something like that, saying like, hey, like, when you do play one of like these Western rivals, like, are you really, throwing everything and the kitchen sink at them, knowing that there's a good chance, they'll see you at the end? And he didn't say like, yeah, we're not going to try as hard, but he did kind of make it sound like, yeah, we are, kind of keeping some tricks up our sleeves, because what's the point in, revealing your whole hand at this point of the year? So I don't know, that'll be something to think about and talk about moving forward. But yeah, either way, playing the 2 Alberta teams this weekend, just to make Sea Bears fans more confident, I think, Winnipeg will have to go at the very least 1-1. Otherwise, if they drop both these guys, I think, the fans here are going to be like, what the heck? Like, we have no chance, even though we have to just win one game at the end.
And just for clarification, like, it was because last year, the Sea Bears' last 3 games were they had a loss to 87-83 loss to Calgary in the second last game. Then they played their last game of the season in Edmonton, lost 89-86. Then they went back to Calgary to play in that game, and they lost 84-82. So there was a lot of Alberta at the end of the season last year. So that's where the confusion comes in. But regardless, they don't have to worry about play-in games. They don't have to even worry about quarterfinals. They have conference finals, and they have a few more games to prepare. First one comes on Friday against Edmonton, 7:30. That game's on TSN Plus and CEBL Plus. And then the game in Calgary is at 2:00 Mountain, 3:00 Manitoba Central Time. And that will be on CEBL Plus, TSN Plus, and CJOB. I will have the call on CJOB for that one. Actually, I'll call on CJOB for both of them. So if you want to listen to the radio and go old school, I'll be there. We'll see you there. Thanks again for coming on here, Taylor, and hashing this out. We'll be back next week. Again, you can follow us on Instagram at TargetScoreWPG. Taylor is at Taylor Allen 31, and I am at Joey Slattery TV. Of course, I'll have your game day reports and everything on Instagram as well, which you can find on our Target Score page. And enjoy the rest of your day, Taylor. We'll see you next week, and enjoy the games, everyone. We'll see you then.